they may not have been robbed. And basically at the time, people were losing their suitcases at the airport. They put their suitcases down, look at the map or the travel document, and then somebody's nicked their suitcase before they've had a chance to notice. If they checked the Foreign Commonwealth Office website for advice before they went, it's very unlikely that would have happened. So you find out about terrorism and other bits and pieces. For Barcelona, they tell you about where to watch out for pickpockets. So it's worth watching, and worth visiting the Foreign Commonwealth Office website and checking out the travel advice for your destination you're interested in. However, it is written extremely blandly, and they are trying to make sure that nobody can say, "You told me it'd be safe." There is an awful lot of stuff in there which could put you off visiting anywhere. So before you start looking at the destination you're going to, look at where you stayed last year, see what the Foreign Commonwealth Office says about the destination you've been to and you know, and that'll give you a rough idea of how to make sense of how they're saying about where you want to go to. So don't just go to the destination you want to go to and just base your whole experience on what the Foreign Commonwealth Office civil servants are writing. Compare it to destinations you do know so you can get a good idea about how serious the threats are. So if you want some websites to check out, I will be putting these up at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. It's wikitravel.org, about.com/travel. There's towd.com, which is a directory of tourist centres. You can use that instead of Google. virtualtourist.com, travelblog.org, travelpod.com and travelerspoint.com. Mixtures of blogs and blogs, travel guides, and I forgot the words, just gone right on my head. Communities where you can ask questions. There we go. But of course, the best known site probably is TripAdvisor. You can get information about destinations, accommodation, and see what people felt about it. Last week I mentioned that Scotland's doing the Scotland Tourist Boards, Visit Scotland's doing the Scotland information for TripAdvisor. So there can be professional stuff on there as well as ramblings of the amateur. But you do need to be careful because people's views may not match yours. What I mean by that? Well, I found a hotel once and in Turkey, and somebody complained there wasn't enough traditional food. And I thought, oh, a Brit who likes Turkish food. But no, when you read the review, traditional food for him when he's in a hotel in Turkey is bacon and eggs. So, I mean, if you're into bacon and eggs and that's all you eat, then that review will be very good. But if you're a bit more cultured, a bit more rounded as an individual, you're not going to care too much about that. And a woman, this happened to be a woman, sorry, a traveller put heaven on earth and then rated the hotel 1 out of 5. And when they read the reviews, she loved the hotel completely, but for some reason it was rated overall 1 out of 5, even though the various different sections are all 4 or 5 out of 5s. So always read what people are saying. Don't just go on the ratings, because there could be a mistake like that. And don't just look at the reviews, which are now. Look at the reviews for the period you're looking at travelling in. Because if you're travelling in August, you're looking at booking January, don't just do the reviews for December and November. Go to August for as far back as you can to see if there's a pattern of complaints. If, for example, they couldn't handle the peak period last year, they couldn't handle the peak period the year before, and the peak period before that, what makes you think they're going to handle it this year? There's nothing to back up that they're actually going to pull their finger out and do a good job. So go back as far as you can. And look a few months either side, because you can find that there's problems you may not think about, such as infestations. Again, with Turkey, there was a wasp infestation that comes every year. So if you don't look for the period you're travelling and the window either side, you may miss that we were inundated with wasps. It was terrible. It was horrible. And then you look at the reviews for 4 or 5 months later, everybody loves it. So it's always important to check the period you're travelling to. And not only that, you do have to bear in mind that TripAdvisor has changed the way it operates now. You used to be able to get cheap options and cheap prices. It's now all there to make money. So do be careful. Do take your time. Do read the reviews. But don't just base everything on TripAdvisor. Find as many different review websites as you can to get a feel, because there's a lot of people in, well, it used to be TripAdvisor, it used to be just Americans complaining, not complaining, offering feedback, and you get into a pattern like, as far as the Americans are concerned, every hotel room in Europe is too small. As far as the British are concerned, they don't like being abroad, but they want England stuff, but with sunshine. And you find that some people dislike other nationalities, like Egypt. Russians came in for a hard time because they're just different. They don't believe in queuing and things like that. So you read the reviews, take it with a pinch of salt, and just see how the reviewers' faults and values compare with your own. And do check out other review websites too. I have listed an awful lot of review websites at johnguinn.me, so I'll put a link for that on facebook.com/JohnGuinn Travel Show too, so you can then link to the pages so you can see the different review websites you can use. Checking it out before you check in on the John Guinn Travel Show on ukhealthradio.com. So I'm talking about planning your holiday using the internet for 2016. Planning your holiday for 2016, not using the internet for 2016. But I'm sure you knew what I meant. So when you're flying, which most people probably are, there are a few rules and tools. So I mentioned already, airport codes. Always make sure you know the airport codes. Just Google airport code and you can get various websites that list them all for you. And again, at johnguinn.me, I've listed the most common ones for people flying from the UK. You can also find out how people felt about a flight. Just like hotels, there are reviews about flights as well. Airlinequality.com, very useful website. You can compare airlines going from two different places. I mean, if you're going from England, well, the UK to the Cayman Islands, you're pretty stuck when it comes to flights. But other destinations, there are a few flights to choose from. And you may find that spending the extra 50 quid will give you a much better travel experience if you're travelling for 4 or 5 hours on a plane than going with the cheapest option. And by using the reviews, you may actually find if you go for the economy on the slightly more expensive version, you'll be better off than if you fly premium economy on the one that reviews badly. You may not even need an upgrade if you choose your seat correctly. You can book your seats ahead now with many airlines. Virgin, you can do it pretty much straight away if you book it direct. And you can have use a website called seatguru.com. Near enough every flight, every model of airplane. It tells you where the bad seats are, where the good seats are. Bad seats, often near the galleys, they're smelly. Near the toilets, people queuing, tripping over your feet, and the smells. You've got power pack points as well for the in-flight entertainment. So in some seats you have reduced foot space because there's massive power supplies where your feet go. So all that sort of thing is listed. I used it to my advantage when I was flying with an airline. I booked what's called a honeymoon seat, which is at the back. It's called a honeymoon seat because instead of 3 seats together, it's just the 2, because the plane narrows at the back. There isn't room for the 3rd seat. So you get a lot more space to either side of the 2 seats. I was bumped off those seats because the plane had changed because of operational reasons. But I could tell, because I already knew that every single model of flight that takes that route has exactly the same configuration. And I got loads of air miles out of it. Enough for me to go premium upgrade my next flight with the airline. So very good for that too. And when you book flights, it's very, very important that you always book off the flight rules. Now the flight rules are the terms and conditions for that ticket. It tells you if you can amend it, if you can cancel it, if you cancel it, if you can get any money back, how much it's going to cost to amend them. You've got that written down because it can be very expensive to call a call centre to find out that you're stuffed and you can't cancel your ticket without a 100% penalty. And different seats have different rules. So if you book a seat, say Boxing Day, by the time it comes to the 30th of December, all the tickets sold under those terms and conditions have now been sold out. They're on different ones now, so you might not be able to find your terms and conditions. So print them when you book, so you have that record and you know where you stand with your ticket. And of course, do read the terms and conditions before you hand your money over to make sure that you're happy. And the terms and conditions, if you break them, the airline could refuse you boarding if they can find out that you've broken it. Why is that important? Well, a few years ago, I found Virgin flights, that's maybe 10 years ago now, Virgin flights, London to New York, £240, San Francisco to London, £270. But when you put those together in the return trip, which is called an open leg, open jaw, flying one come out of another. It was over £1,000 because the rules said you had to fly on you had to spend a Saturday night in America to make use of those fares. So you could have to book 2 singles, but then on the return journey, if they figured out you booked a single for the savings, they will refuse you boarding because you've broken their rules for the ticket for the return back. So in those sort of instances, you're best off just booking with different airlines and mixing them. But do pay attention to the flight rules. Google Maps is getting slightly more complicated now, but you can use that to find out where all the restaurants are within your area. Put in your hotel and then search nearby, put restaurants, and then 10 come up and you can go through and review, and there's flicks so you can see what the menus are and the contacts to make sure you can get what you want to eat. And there's also review websites. You've got Yelp and OpenTable. But always be aware of the risks when you're booking your holiday online, or even with a bricks and mortar travel agent. Do your homework. Don't just hand over your money. Find out how well protected your money is. I haven't flown a package holiday for an awful long time, but I know the risks. I know it could cost me a lot of money to put something right if something goes wrong. But I'm aware of that, and I know how to put it right if it goes wrong because of my experience. So I'm aware of the risks. But a lot of people aren't. So if you're in the Caribbean, there's a hurricane, you can't get out. Depending on who you booked with, you could end up with all sorts of financial problems. So do make sure you're aware of your rules. Check out a European Community Regulation EU 261. Tells you what happens if you deny boarding because of delays or cancellations. Know the risks before you hand over any money, and have an escape plan if something goes wrong. But the most important thing for your holiday in 2016, despite the fact I've been moaning and warning you about bits and pieces, is make sure you have a great time. Things do go wrong. Don't let them worry. Make your holiday ruined. Just relax, chill out, have a great time. And please don't forget to share your experiences at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. You can keep up to date with travel news and leave me a message at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Well, that's it for this week's travel show. I hope you found the information I shared on using the internet useful and I didn't put you off too much. And the travel news I hope you found a little bit fascinating too. I didn't want to say interesting again because there's so many times you can say interesting in a segue. Interestingly. So I've now finished for Christmas. I hope you had a great holiday if you were off. And 2016 is still coming, but there's still one more show. It will be my 149th travel show next week. Who would have thought that after my first one 3.5 years ago? Definitely not me. But if you've been away over Christmas and you want to recommend where you've been, facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Let everybody know where you've been and what a great time you had. Likewise, if it's been terrible, you can tell us about that too. And for your new year. So I do hope you can join me next time on the Travel Show with John Guinn on ukhealthradio.com, where each week I'm checking it out before you check in.